Well, here we are again, working on the semi, right? That's all we do. But that's okay, because it's actually a ton of fun and really personally rewarding to be able to work on something that I admired as a little boy. And here it is, right here. It's just ridiculous. Anyways, today we're going to cut out more metal. That's pretty much all that's left to do on the trailer at this point, is to get this footer panel kind of knocked out, and then we can get precise measurements to take it to our fabricator. We're gonna get a new piece made and then have them come out here and weld it in. So we're gonna get this cut out and we'll see what other stuff we get into. So let's get going. All right, so I think the first thing we want to do is get this center panel out. It looks like it's just tacked here in a couple places. So if I grind those out, hopefully that panel will be removed. The reason this is like this, by the way, is because, well, at least as far as we can tell. So whenever the trailer was sold in 1987, the first owner put a portion of this kind of slanted drop footer piece in. I don't know what you want to call it. But in the pictures we have of this trailer from 1988, this part and this part have already been converted. They've already cut out the footer and put this gentle slope in. But the center was still the original piece. It still went the whole way up here. So it wasn't until later, and we don't know exactly when, that someone came through and cut that middle piece out as well. And when they did that, they just tacked that additional plate in. So that's why this looks the way it does, as opposed to one complete piece the whole way across. So the more you know. The best part of all this grinding is the smell of my arm hairs burning. So close. Come on. There we go. Now, can we get it out? There we go. All right, so let me bring in all right, so we got that panel out, and you can see better where that brace was, the mount here for that winch that we talked about in our last video. And then there's a better look at that piece right there that connected here. Although I think, because you see how this slopes down, I think that originally came out and down, and that's probably why it was cut the way it was. So I need to figure out what that is. That does not move, whatever that is. Interesting. All right, we got that out. We do have to cut both of those out as well, because that all needs rebuilt so we can put the taillights in there. So maybe that's what we'll do next. There we go, we got that edge right back to where it was cut, oh, so long ago. There's that bracket. So we'll reconstruct that even though we don't know what it was for yet. And there's the other piece of that bracket. Voila. There you go. Now you get a real good look. And look at this. I mean, I guess I realized this was under there, this giant L channel. I didn't realize how long it was, but that was for the winch right there. So now we just have to figure out how to get this lip piece off here so we can get the taillights cut back out. There's one right there. Got to figure those out. Same with the other side. All right, so take a look at this. Again, have this trailer here 6 months. I've been over every inch of it, and once again, I noticed something I never noticed before. So this is obviously the man door here. Look at this. First I thought that was a rivet, and then I look closer, I'm like, boy, that sure looks like a light, doesn't it? So then, I went on the inside, and look at that. There's 2 wire leads for a light. Why would there be a little red light there? Only one. Right there. No others. Is that like when the light's on, don't come a knocking type of deal? I don't know. What do you guys think? Put it in the comments below. What do you think that light was for? Do you think that was used on the show? Should we try and find a screenshot of this side of the trailer when it's not blurred because it's in motion to see if there's a light there? Probably not. Probably from its racing days. Why would there be a small red light there? Oh, if you could only talk. All right, so let's take a moment, aside from the work we're still doing on the trailer, to talk more about all of you wonderful people who have donated some of your hard-earned money to get your name on the semi wall. Now, this has gone way beyond our expectations in terms of the sheer number of you that have donated. So I first want to say thank you so much. You know, taking on a project of this size, not just the trailer, but the tractor too, is certainly something that we've never dealt with before. And, you know, none of this is cheap, you know, fabrication, tune-ups, tires, just all this stuff is very expensive. So you guys have no idea how much stuff like this helps us. Now, if you're not familiar with kind of what we're doing here, we covered it in the last few semi-restoration videos. We've decided to, for a donation of $100 or more, you can have your name permanently mounted on a plaque in the semi wall. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is like a hot mess, right? Well, it kind of is. What we're doing right now is just doing a temporary kind of honorary, I guess, or just for this. It's just writing our names down is what I'm trying to say here. We're just getting the names down temporarily here. When we're done collecting names, we're going to have all of this turned into a really nice permanent laser engraved plaque that's going to be mounted inside the trailer when it's done. But since we're still adding names on a very regular basis, thanks to you guys, we don't want to put the cart before the horse and have the plaque done and then get more names in. You know, it all makes sense. So if you're interested in getting your name on the semi wall, donation of $100 or more, you can send that to nightridersemi@gmail.com via PayPal. If you don't have PayPal, that's okay. Shoot us a message. We'll give you some alternate ways to pay. Originally, we were only going to run this through the end of November. Then we're going to run it through the end of December. Well, a lot of you guys have reached out and said, you know, I really want to donate. Right now is not a great time with the holidays, you know, and our budgets. So can we do it next year? So yes. So instead of me saying we're going to collect until the end of November, the end of December, end of January, whatever, we're just going to keep this going into next year. I mean, there is going to be a cutoff point at some point. We don't know where that is yet. But for now, the donations are still open. So if you are interested, nightridersemi@gmail.com for questions or to pay via PayPal, and the information is also in the description below. So for this video, we do have a whole slew of new names right here on this board. This is all from previous videos, and I'll bring you in here in a minute. We'll do a scan of these names. If you see your name on here, if it's misspelled, let me know, we'll get it fixed. And that's another reason why we're doing this way, to make sure all the names are right. If you donated and you do not see your name here, let me know. This is December, what is today? December 20th. So if you donated, let's say November or December 19th or earlier, you don't see your name here, and you let us know, and we'll, you know, add it. But I did want to give a very special shout out, because in this list are a couple of very special names. Nick Nugent, Gary Spahn, and Daniel Trujillo. Now, some of you guys know, a lot of you guys know Nick. He's contributed a wealth of information in the Knight Rider community for many, many years. He's got a wonderful book, The Knight Rider Companion, and highly recommend, if you're interested in Knight Rider books, check that out. As you know, we have a couple books. We have Knight Rider Legacy, Knight Rider 30 Years of a Lone Crusader and His Talking Car. Nick also has a wonderful book, The Knight Rider Companion. Fabulous illustrations, great information. Definitely check that out. Nick's, a very important person in Nick's life recently passed away. And Nick wanted to honor that person. That's Gary Spawn. A lot of you guys know Gary. He's been to some of the Knight Rider events over the years. He was really a father figure for Nick, and they had a very close relationship. Well, Gary unfortunately passed away, and Nick wanted to do something special to honor him. So Gary really supported Nick, really enjoyed Knight Rider and all of the fans, you guys, the community. So in honor of Gary, Nick gave us a very generous gift to put towards the semi-trailer and tractor restoration. So I just wanted to take a moment to publicly thank Nick for that donation. And because of him, and really because of all of you guys that have donated over the last few months, or even the last couple of years with the tractor, because of you guys, we are going to be able to bring this trailer back to exactly the way it was in 1986. And I really, really hope that you guys, any of you that are watching, I really hope that one day you get a chance to stand where I'm standing and look around and see the trailer, walk into the set, because it's something you'll certainly never forget. So, with all that said, thank you guys again. If you're interested in donating, knightridersemi@gmail.com. All right, so I thought the next thing we could do is maybe get some of this angle iron off of here. This is original, this is not, this all needs to come off, and it'll kind of make the trailer look even just more like it did back on the show. You know, we're kind of at this point now with the trailer. The weather is officially cold here, like freezing temperatures, and we're getting to the point where there's not a ton left to do right now before we hit some stopping points. We have to wait to get a few pieces fabricated, get those welded in, things like that. So really the only stuff left to do is all this little stuff that I've kind of been putting off for a while. So, just to keep these trailer videos going, we'll still show you removing some of this stuff, and there's a few other little things we can do on the trailer. And hopefully here after the holidays, after the new year, we'll be able to really get back and start getting some pieces fabricated and really start working on getting this whole thing, put back together. you know, just adding to the scrap pile. All right, guys, so let's take just a couple moments and thank our newest Patreon flag agents. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, maybe you haven't been following the last dozen or so semi-restoration videos, and you're not sure what a flag agent is. So we have a Patreon community, and Patreon is a special club, I guess you could say, a special way to support us that gets you some perks as well. So by becoming a Patreon supporter, you get early access to all our videos. You get some exclusive videos that people will never see publicly, behind the scenes photos, all kinds of wonderful stuff. Now, there's 4 different tiers of support within Patreon community, and our flag agents are our top tier supporters. As a flag agent, those who support us in that way get a shout out in a future video, which we'll do here in a second, and you get all of your Knight Rider questions answered by me on air. Aren't you lucky? Yes, you are. And that's not just a one-time thing. That's as long as you're a flag agent. Any questions you have, you message them to me, we put them on here. So if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, whether it be a flag agent or at really any level, you can check out a link below to learn more about it. Look in the description below. You can also look in the corner of this video. All right, so let's go over our latest Patreon flag agents. First, we've got Andy Esser. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you here. We also have Eric Elton. Eric, thanks for being here. We've got WD, very mysterious. I'm gonna assume that's William Daniels, so hey, Bill, thanks for joining our little channel here. We've got Dennis Schlickow. Thank you, Dennis, not only for your support, but for sending me a message to tell me how to pronounce your last name. Definitely appreciated. We've also got Kevin Knight. Kevin is a friend of ours. He's been here, and in fact, here's a little trivia for you. You know our opening intro of pretty much every video we've done over the last year or two? In our opening intro, there's a little bit of drone footage of one of our original cars. Kevin shot that. Kevin, great to have you. We've got Nate Anderson. Nate's another friend of ours. Haven't seen you, Nate, in a few years. It's definitely time, you know, come over here, come see the semi. Marcus Core. Marcus, I don't think I've met you, but it's awesome that you're here. We also have the Chrysler Industries 2000. Interesting. Chrysler with a K. We'll just call you KITT for short. Thanks for joining us. Also, Redline Garage HW. Assuming HW is Hot Wheels, since Hot Wheels had the Redline cars. So, RGHW, thanks for being here. And finally, Benjamin Carl. Benjamin, happy to have you here. All right, let's go over some of our flag agent questions. First from Dennis Schlickow. How many jump cars were used, not including the flivver car? Okay, so that's question 1. He's got quite a few questions here, but you're allowed to, you're a flag agent. All right, how many jump cars were used, not including the flivver car? So that's not necessarily a straightforward answer. They had a dedicated jump car. I always, in my episode commentaries, I call it the roll cage acrylic window jump car. And they had that the entire series. Now that specific car was actually at least a couple different Trans Ams. We've covered that in the past. But that was the main car that they used for jumps, besides the flivver car. But then there are certain episodes where they would jump other cars that weren't necessarily built or meant to be jumped. For example, if you watch Junkyard Dog and the scene where KITT's on the test track, the primered colored KITT, and they do a jump, that's actually the left-hand blind drive car, which kind of surprised me that they would jump that car, because it was such a special purpose-built car that if something happened to it, you know, that could potentially stop production if they needed that car for another scene. So, how many were accidentally destroyed from turbo boost gone wrong? That's a great question. I have no idea, but really I don't think as many as maybe you would think, because again, so it was mainly it was the flivver car and the roll cage jump car. So the roll cage jump car, we know they jumped that car many times, and eventually they had to replace it. We don't know is how many times they replaced that specific Trans Am. It was at least 2, probably more than 2, right? The flivver car was actually a dune buggy with a Trans Am shell on top. I'm guessing that was good the whole 4 years of the show. So the answer is probably not a ton, but we don't know exactly how many. And he wanted to know specifically on the blooper reel, there's a landing where the front end buckled severely. Was that vehicle repaired or destroyed from that landing? So I think the scene you're talking about is from Soul Survivor, right? Where you see KITT jump, he lands, the front bumper flies off. That was the roll cage jump car, and I don't know specifically if that jump destroyed that car. It very well could have. I don't know. Was there ever a blind drive turbo boost? Oh yeah, I guess we just covered that, right? Yes, Junkyard Dog, and there's probably more, but that's the only one that's coming to mind right now. All right, Marcus Core. Who are the other actors considered for the roles of Michael, Devin, and Bonnie before David, Edward, and Patricia were cast? So we actually covered this, I believe it was in one of our early episode commentaries, but I have to go back and look. But for David, I know it was a guy named Steve Bauer, Don Johnson, Jeff Osterhage, who played John Stanton in KITT vs. Carr, was up for it. And I know there's at least 1 or 2 more, but I'm blanking on who those are at the time. But we do have the whole list in a previous video. For Edward, I don't think there was anyone else ever considered, or for Devin, for anyone else considered except Edward Mulhare. Patricia McPherson, I know Mary Margaret Humes was considered for the role. She obviously didn't get it, but she had a guest star role in No Big Thing in season 1. And finally, Steve Cospito, I have a question. Oh, and then, I'm sorry, you didn't ask this, but Peter Peros, RC3, Blair Underwood was also up for that role. All right, Steve Cospito, I have a question. What made the show change the tractor from a day cab to having the sleeper, especially if the sleeper was non-functioning? Here's my guess on that. So when the show, so in season 3, beginning of season 3 is when they got the new GMC General Tractor, the same one that we currently have. Whenever they, and I think the reason they switched trucks is because Universal and the product placement company, Vista Group, which we've talked about before on this channel, Vista Group had a contract with GMC, and they did a lot to place GMC products in different shows of the day. In fact, if you really watch Knight Rider, notice like there's a ton of GMC pickup trucks and SUVs and all that stuff, and a lot of that was due to the Vista Group. And same with Airwolf and all those shows of the day. There's tons of GMC, and that's because of Vista Group getting them in. But so my guess is they brought in a new tractor in season 3. Simply because they were trying to get the latest brand new GMC products on the show to promote. Now, even though the 2 GMC Generals, the design of the Generals really didn't change at all from the time that they came around in, I think, 1977. I mean, just little details, really. But my guess regarding the sleeper is probably because, the show had established that the semi-set had the lounge, right? It had a lounge up there, and they've also established that there was a way to get to the tractor to drive the semi through this area of the trailer. So my guess is that they probably wanted the sleeper so it was a little bit more consistent with the set and how they had everything laid out. That would be my guess. As to why it was never connected to the tractor, I don't think, maybe you guys can correct me, but I don't think the GMC Generals had any sleepers from the factory. I know that GMC was considering building sleepers to put on the Generals. In fact, Smoking the Bandit 2, where we see the GMC General, there's a sleeper on that. That's called the General's Quarters. And I believe General Motors made 3 prototypes of those sleepers, and to test out the feasibility of putting sleepers on their cabs from the factory. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. So my guess is they just put a fake sleeper on there because, again, it's just for a TV show. They didn't need it to connect, and they just wanted kind of the look. So it's just my guess. All right, guys, that's all we have. Again, if you're interested in becoming a Flag Patreon supporter, really any level, check out the description below. All right, let's get back at it. All right, so let me share a story with you. This is a cool story. And it revolves around something we just discovered on the trailer within the last 24 hours. All right, so I think I've talked about this before, but we recently made contact, had a wonderful conversation with a couple of the guys that worked at the studio that actually worked on this trailer. And I mean putting the modifications in for the ramp and all this stuff. And we had a wonderful conversation. They had all kinds of detailed memories about how things were done. That's how we figured out about how the ramp mechanism worked. But one of the things they said left us kind of scratching our heads. They said that they installed an actuator to pop the door open just enough so gravity could take it the rest of the way down whenever tension was released on the 2 cables. And we had spent so much time analyzing screenshots of the trailer, trying to figure out where things were mounted, how things worked. And in all of those screenshots, we never, ever saw any type of actuator. You know, when the door is open a little bit, you'd think you'd see something, you know, in the header that was pushing the door open. We never saw anything. So I thought, well, maybe he was just confusing with another project, or maybe it's something they tried and off camera didn't work or whatever. So, so that was that. Didn't think that much of it. Well, as you know, I recently finished up the episode commentaries, and I was doing the commentary on Voodoo Night, and there's this great scene where the door is open and RC on his bike flies out the back of the trailer. And that wasn't stock footage. That was actually filmed for Voodoo Night. And I was looking at that screenshot, and I did what I normally do with screenshots of the trailer. I pause and I look at like everything on that screenshot, which I had done on this particular screenshot a number of times. But this time was different because I happened to look at the header panel and I'm like, what is that? There was this little pad in the center that was never there earlier in the series. And there's not a lot of opportunities to see the back end close up, right? You usually see it on the road, far away, Kitt's backing out. So you don't really see the back too often. But I saw this scene and I saw this little pad, this little square pad in the center of the header, right underneath where that hook is to hold the door shut. And I was looking at it, I'm like, is that the actuator that he was talking about? And if you look at it even closer, behind where that pad is, you can see a white, looks like a white tube. And I forget what he told me on our call. He said the actuator was fired off either from like a CO2 cartridge or a nitrogen, something like that, where it popped the door open. And I was looking at that, I'm like, that sure looks like a cartridge behind there. So, you know, after talking to some people and analyzing it, we've pretty much determined that was the door popper. And the reason we never found it is because it appears that they didn't add that little popper on until later in the series, maybe even not even until the 4th season. We're not totally sure. But as soon as we made that discovery, we're like, well, this is awesome. We totally are going to replicate that. And then the next thing I want to do is like, well, the trailer's here. If there was something mounted there, I would think there should be some evidence of it, right? So, of course, I made all these discoveries pretty much after the sun had set, so I had to wait like till the next day and all that stuff. But it was well worth it because we made a discovery up there. So directly related to this actuator we're talking about. So let me take you upstairs. Oh, I guess it's not upstairs anymore since there is no second floor. Anyways, let me take you up there and show you what we found. Okay, so we're way up here. This is the header panel, right? Here's where the hook that mechanically held the door shut, that's the hole it went through. And then the rope. We covered all this in a previous video, but this is what I wanted to point out to you. See this evidence that something was welded here. You see that right there? Now, of course, I've been up here a million times and I never noticed that or didn't really think much of it. But now that I saw that screenshot, this tells me this is exactly where they welded on that little actuator to pop the door open. Right there. The evidence doesn't lie. So naturally, now we have a fairly good template there to replicate the door popper. The one that we thought just really didn't exist. All right, so that's about all we can get done on the trailer for this go around. Like I said, you know, there's not a ton left to do right now until we get some stuff fabricated, things like that. We do have, you know, a little bit more on the underneath there to cut out. But other than that, we're like done with teardown, which is just fantastic, right? And it's just in time because, you know, today is cold, but not as cold as it's going to be in a few days. It's going to be bone-chilling cold, which I just love. Glad I live here. And in fact, it'll probably be the coldest temperatures that the trailer has ever seen in its entire life. So that should be fun, right? But it's definitely survived much worse. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be back again soon with more updates on the trailer. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Oh.